We begin in a dense forest where there is an abundance of lakes, rivers, and swamps. Hidden within is a building where illegal substances are manufactured, and the supervisor is always alert to ensure production does not stop. It is already dawn when a group of federal police arrives at the site and interrupts the work, using force and many shots to stop the traffickers. One of them ends up spilling a narcotic liquid into the stream that flows into the river before the police manage to dismantle the illegal operations at that location. The next morning, there is a group of alligators gathered when the liquid arrives and covers them, making them aggressive. A few days later, we meet a young woman named Kyle, who is in a biology class. However, she does not pay much attention in class, where the teacher talks about predators and their habitats, one of them being a formidable alligator. Kyle is eventually questioned about the topic of the lesson, but she responds with a comprehensible answer, making the teacher happy that she knows the subject well. After class, Kyle meets her friend Alice, after a few months without seeing each other. The friends had planned an outing, but Kyle is upset to see that Alice is without her car. The other friends are Malika and the young Sam. Alice says she sold her car. That's why they are carpooling in Malika's car, something that displeases Kyle. On the way to their adventure in the trails, the two friends talk about how life is going for both of them, and Kyle is surprised and worried at the same time, as Alice is going through a financially difficult time. The group of friends tries to enjoy the trip, and when they are at a hotel, they have fun in the pool. However, when Alice sees Kyle's face a bit downcast, she tells her that the young woman needs to move on. It is then that we learn that Kyle lost her dear brother. The trip is also to scatter the brother's ashes in a beautiful place. She questions her friend, asking how she can move on after losing someone she loves. After saying such words, she leaves her friends there and watches a video of her brother, who loved riding motorcycles. Then she goes to her room. At dawn, Malika wakes the friends to continue the outing and start what was planned. The young people continue their journey and arrive at a gas station to refuel. While the others enter the establishment, Kyle reads the newspapers and sees articles about the past and recent alligator attacks. Kyle suddenly hears a man's voice, telling them to stay out of the water as that might save them. She approaches the man, who warns them to be careful of the large one, claiming that it has a big scar on its face. The group passes a sign on the road indicating they are heading to the alligator sanctuary, and Malika even mentions that the eggs of those reptiles are very valuable. However, the surprise Malika has prepared is different. She takes them to a small airport, where she has scheduled an aerial tour of the area to reach their destination faster. The friends are a bit upset with Malika's surprise, since the young woman, knowing about Kyle's fear of flying, decided to hire an aircraft. The young people, unable to turn back, meet the pilot who has already been taking a few swigs of whiskey. The man's name is Frank, and his co-pilot is his companion named Ray. Soon he gathers the group that will go on the tour, including the young ones and some adults. Frank says they will go to Florida, but being used to the route, he says that his passengers like to enjoy the low altitude and admire the swamps in the region. The aircraft takes off, and midway through the flight, a man calls someone on his phone, but he is warned that he needs to hang up, as there is a risk of interference and causing problems for the airplane. However, the man ignores the advice of the others and continues the call. When one of them tries to force the man to hang up, the airplane starts to experience a failure in the engines, and without being able to restart them, the pilots can only watch the aircraft fall. After regaining consciousness, the group emerges from the water and recovers on solid ground. The adults include businessman Rufus, the couple Dom and Zoe, who is badly injured, a woman named Roseanne, receiving comfort from Alice, as she is saddened that she cannot see her husband and does not believe she lost him in the accident. Frank calls for his co-pilot, but no response is heard. Some of the young people wonder if the rescue will take long, but Frank does not answer. However, Kyle confirms to Malika that the flight was cheap because it had no tracking, as it was not an authorized flight. Kyle shows her irritation at Frank's irresponsibility for having taken them to the largest gathering of swamps in the United States, but there is nothing to be done other than trying to survive and seek help somewhere. Frank says they need to walk north, where they might find an aviation point, but he warns them that the distance is between 30 and 40 miles. Part of the group is concerned about the current situation, but Kyle, even after the accident, remains focused and eager to get out of there. She then asks everyone to recover everything they can that might be useful. While everyone searches for something among the wreckage, Alice sees something among the foliage, and, curious, she goes to investigate. There she finds alligator eggs, and remembering the value that Malika mentioned, she thinks of something. The group regroups to see what they have found when suddenly Zoe spots something in the water and alerts the others. Frank becomes apprehensive upon seeing his companion floating in the water and quickly rushes to retrieve him. However, just before getting near Ray's body, the group is horrified by a large alligator attacking the man's body. Seeing the animals attack and fearing the worst, they quickly exit the water. Alarmed, Kyle asserts that there must be a nest of the species nearby, as such animals do not approach humans like that. However, they are very territorial and can attack anything in their area. Kyle says that whether injured or not, they need to leave that place. The group begins their journey, while the bodies of the dead are left behind. The scene then shifts to the nest of the fierce creature, and it observes that now it has only one of its eggs left, making it furious, revealing that Alice has taken the others. During a break to rest, Malika is annoyed to see Kyle taking charge of the situation as if she were the leader of the group, something that is good for the others, as she proves to be capable. Frank says they will make a fire, and when Kelly tries to take the lighter from Alice's backpack, she refuses, saying she can handle it, clearly wanting to hide what she has in her backpack. After warming up, the group decides to spend the night there. Near dawn, we see the alligator navigating the river, searching for something. At dawn, Rufus gets up to relieve himself, and his phone receives a signal and starts ringing. Excited, he ends up dropping the device, and when he picks up the phone to answer the call, he does not notice that he is walking into a deadly trap. He stands still inside the enormous mouth of the alligator, which promptly attacks him fatally. When the entire group awakens, they find what remains of Rufus's body nearby. Kyle, shocked by the attack, questions Frank about the supposed fact that such animals should not attack humans. Frank explains that normally alligators disappear upon hearing footsteps, but there are rumors that these animals cover a wide area aggressively. He also says that local residents nicknamed a large alligator suspected of the attacks Christina, the one with the scar. The group observes a cabin nearby and heads there. Roseanne excitedly follows in front, but Kyle asks everyone to stop. She points out hidden spots in the forest where something is lurking. Frank says there are many and they won't be able to run, but Kyle insists they should stay grouped since such animals do not attack anything larger than them. While they talk, one of the beasts attacks Roseanne and drags her into the vegetation, disappearing with the woman's body. Seeing the other animals emerging and running towards them, they all run desperately to the cabin. Unfortunately, Zoe is the last in the group and ends up being bitten in the leg, but fortunately escapes death. Part of the group manages to block the entrance of one of the large alligators and manages to seal the door afterward. After a silence, they hear Roseanne screaming for help, but nothing can be done. They remain in the cabin and spend the night taking turns keeping watch. As outside, the reptiles are also alert to any movement from the humans. In the early hours, Kyle dreams of the day her brother died, where in an attempt to prevent a robbery, her brother attacked the criminals and gave Kyle the chance to shoot one of them, but she did not have the courage, and as a result, her brother was shot and did not survive the injury. At dawn, Sam shows Kyle a map he found in the cabin. They notice a marked point that is not too far from there. Hoping it might be a populated place with someone to help them, they can reach it after crossing a river. Malika wants to stay there and wait, but the options are to stay and starve or try to leave and find a way to survive. Frank holds a vote, and only Malika wants to stay while the others want to take their chances. The group then receives guidance from Kyle about the species they might face. If they encounter an alligator, the first thing they will do is run, and if attacked, the best way to escape is to strike their snouts and poke their eyes, and they must do this before entering the water, because if that happens, their end is guaranteed. The group then exits the cabin and begins their journey once again. A few minutes later, they stop to let Zoe rest, as her injuries are quite severe. Shortly afterwards, Sam, hearing the sound of flowing water, follows along with the others, and then they reach the river, but the problem is that they need to cross it. Thinking of a solution, Dom says he can make a raft since they are in a place full of materials. Without wasting time, they gather resources and prepare the transport. Dom takes a moment to tend to Zoe's wounds, which do not look very good. However, He promises to take her home and tries to reassure her. Frank, Sam, and Alice head out to look for more wood, but on the way, Alice sees something in the vegetation and, curious, she decides to take a look. As she arrives there, she comes face to face with the large, ferocious beast and, unafraid, decides to attack it before it surprises them. In the next moment, Alice rushes to the group and says they need to leave immediately. They quickly board the improvised raft, but do not leave Kyle's brother's ashes behind, and Sam barely escapes being caught. Everyone is apparently safe on the raft. However, the large alligators, over 4 meters long, enter the river. They are quick in the water, and sooner or later they will catch up to the group. Reflecting a bit and hearing the group's agony as danger approaches, Zoe, given her condition, believing she is a burden to everyone, decides to sacrifice herself to buy time for the others. She gives one last loving and farewell glance to her husband. Unfortunately, she throws herself into the river, becoming an easy target for the beasts, who are drawn to her and brutally attack her. Dom is inconsolable, but the group continues to navigate. Hours later, we see them passing through a swamp, and finally, they find the building, which is actually the location from the beginning of the film. Bullet capsules and bloodstains are still present at the site. Frank says that this is a place for producing illegal substances, and the Federals came through here to put an end to everything. Malika wants to check another room, but Frank warns her not to do so hastily, and he is correct because in one of the rooms there are large alligators waiting for any prey to fall into the trap. The group then begins a subtle excursion in the area and comes across stains on the walls, but no sign of the victims' bodies. They arrive in a large shed, and upon checking if there is still power in the place, they start looking for a radio. They split into 2 teams, while Sam, Kyle, and Dom stick together. Alice, Frank, and Malika are on the other side. Frank asks Alice to check other locations while he follows Malika. He suddenly stops in front of the young woman and says he knows her type, someone who does not care about others. Tired of her actions, he pushes her from the top of a staircase and leaves her hanging, forcing her to apologize for her actions. Kyle's group finds a gallon filled with illegal substances, where the young woman believes it may have spilled into the river, possibly explaining the ferocity of the reptiles. Suddenly, they come across a young man, emerging from hiding, severely injured and scared, shouting, "They're everywhere!" He then dies, leaving the others confused. Alice soon arrives and Kyle questions her about the whereabouts of the others. The scene shifts, and we see Frank staring intently at the young woman, asking him to get her out of there. But as he decides to stop, an alligator appears from the ceiling, grabbing his head and dragging him away. Fortunately for Malika, the others find and rescue her. After this terrifying scare, she apologizes to Kyle for being so stupid, and accepting the request, Kyle hugs her. Next, the group enters another room and is astonished to see the door closing and trapping them inside. Soon they realize that they are in a den, and one of the large alligators is there. Kyle, looking around, sees that on the other side there is a room with a radio, but in order to get there, they will have to pass right in the middle of the slumbering reptiles. Courageously, Kyle instructs the group to move towards the room, ordering them to be silent. Leading the way, Kyle is followed by Dom, then by Alice, and Malika, who jumps hurriedly over the tail of the alligator, unaware that this could wake it. Sam is the last, and unfortunately, he trips over food scraps and ends up waking one of the animals, which quickly attacks him and takes his head off. Dom carries Malika into the room and locks the door while Kyle calls for help over the radio. Unfortunately, the power goes out, and she cannot complete the help request. Kyle finds a gun and a blade, and they decide to exit through another exit door. The 4 exit slowly. However, they encounter the danger that Kyle was warned not to see. The large alligator with the scar on its eye. An enormous and terrifying beast. Alice, noticing that the animal is looking at her, approaches the creature and removes one of the several eggs she previously stole from her backpack. Knowing this is what the beast wants, Alice foolishly extends her arm as if offering the egg, but the creature bites her arm and tears it off. This time, Kyle uses the gun she possesses and shoots at the alligator, helping the others pull Alice away. Unfortunately, the bullets are insufficient and run out. However, bravely, She picks up the blade from the ground and strikes the beast's head right in its already injured eye. But this blow is not fatal to that predator. Kyle pulls away from it and, spotting a gallon of flammable liquid, plans one last action against the reptile. She pours it around the beast and then lights a fire with the lighter. The flames engulf the creature's body, and that is the end for the animal as it roars in pain. After defeating such a fierce enemy, the group arrives at a habitable area, and on a bridge, they see a helicopter approaching, which has come to rescue them. A few days later, Kyle heads to a nature reserve of stunning beauty, where she performs one last act of love and farewell, scattering her brother's ashes in the waters of a waterfall.